Changing topics now, the Bank of Israel's efforts to protect and strengthen the shekel apparently paying off. Israel's currency now at the strongest rate that it's been since the bank announced its foreign currency purchasing program around 7 months ago. But is this strength deserved, or will we see a rebound in the near future? Joining me to discuss is former member of the Economic Advisory Board with the Israeli Ministry of Finance and head of the Foreign Equity Research at Xnes, Gilad Alper. Gilad, thank you so much for being with us. Now, how does the foreign currency purchasing program work exactly?
So what happens, the Bank of Israel basically decides to help exporters, right? Because as the shekel gets stronger, the competitiveness of Israeli exporters abroad is being damaged. So what the Bank of Israel does, they basically print shekels. With those shekels, they buy US dollars, thereby supporting the US dollar exchange rate versus the Israeli shekel, thereby helping Israeli exporters. That's the plan, at least.
Okay, so what are the limits of such a program, and are we nearing those limits now? We've seen reports that in the first 6 months of 2021, we've actually gotten quite close.
So the limits are that basically whenever the Bank of Israel prints shekels and buy dollars, it's being done at the expense of the Israeli citizenry, right? Because for us, for people that live in Israel, a strong shekel is good because it increases our purchasing power, it lowers the cost of living, and this is basically the fruits of the strong exports of the State of Israel that we should enjoy. And with the Bank of Israel prints shekels, they don't let us, the citizens, enjoy the full benefits of the strong shekel, of the strong exports. And there's some other costs associated with printing too many shekels. Basically, the Bank of Israel can actually lose money by paying interest on those shekels, and that loss eventually gets to us. So there are some other costs. But the big point is that the Bank of Israel is basically fighting the forces of the free market. The reason that the shekel is so strong is because exports are very strong, right? Israel makes a lot of high-tech products. We have successful entrepreneurs that set up small companies, startups, and will sell them, and that creates a strong inflow of foreign exchange into Israel, which is what is basically the main reason behind the strong shekel. So when the Bank of Israel fights that, it basically fights the free market. It fights the strength of the Israeli economy. And that's something that usually ends up with the victory of the free market and the loss of the Bank of Israel, which is why we also have a lot of speculators in Israel, just assuming that the Bank of Israel will eventually break and won't be able to continue and print shekels. And that's another cost, by the way, that we have to incur.
So, is that what Energy Finance CEO Yossi Frank, when he was speaking to Globes, means when he says that this could backfire, that the Bank of Israel is asleep at the wheel?
Yes, so I think he's got it backwards. I mean, the reason we have that speculative power or pressure is because the Bank of Israel is involved in the market. If the Bank of Israel wasn't involved at all, and the only thing that actually was determining the exchange rate was the free market, and let's say we would be now at, 3 shekels per dollar, then there was nothing for speculators to do because this is the free market. This is the exchange rate as it should be. The reason you have speculative pressure is because the Bank of Israel is involved and is fighting the forces of the free market. The speculators are there only because they think the Bank of Israel won't be able to continue and contend with the forces of the free market. This is completely the fault of the Bank of Israel for intervening to begin with in this market. And if the Bank of Israel wants to truly get rid of the pressure from speculators, assuming it's a bad thing, it's not even clear it's a bad thing, but assuming the Bank of Israel wants to solve the problem, they can simply announce formally and emphatically that they no longer try to intervene in the foreign exchange market, and they're going to let the free market do what it does best, which is finding the equilibrium prices, or at least push to a process whereby the exchange rate is being determined by the actual market, not by the decisions of some executives at the Bank of Israel.
All right, you've given us a lot to think about, a lot to worry about, I guess. Gilad Alper, thank you so much.
My pleasure.